They send entire teams, sometimes 8 people, sometimes 12, sometimes more. They rotate positions constantly. The person behind you on the sidewalk, that's not your tail. Your actual tail is across the street, pretending to window shop. There's a reason they spend months training their operatives in surveillance detection. It means your mission is compromised. It means you, and potentially everyone you're working with, are at risk. So they teach their people to be paranoid, not clinically paranoid, but professionally paranoid, to notice everything, to trust nothing. They pull back, they switch operatives, they change tactics, and then you've lost your chance to identify them. No, the real techniques are subtle. They're natural. They're movements and behaviors that any ordinary person might do, but that give a trained operative the information they need. It's about creating situations where a tail has to reveal themselves. It's about using the environment to your advantage. What I'm about to show you is real. These aren't movie tricks. This isn't Hollywood fiction. These are actual, tested, proven techniques that operatives use in the field every single day. And you're going to learn techniques that could genuinely save your life. So let's start with the foundation. The first thing you need to understand about surveillance detection is this: you're really not looking for a person. You're looking for a pattern. And patterns, no matter how well disguised, always reveal themselves eventually. Professional surveillance operatives are trained to look completely natural. They dress like everyone else. They move like everyone else. They check their phones. They carry shopping bags. They stop to tie their shoes. Everything they do screams ordinary. But here's what they can't hide: repetition. And repetition is what gives them away every single time. The first technique intelligence operatives use is something called the surveillance detection route, or SDR. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think an SDR is just taking a complicated path to confuse a tailed wrong. An SDR is a deliberately planned route that forces anyone following you to reveal themselves through their behavior. Here's how it works. You don't walk in random directions. You create what intelligence agencies call choke points and decision points. A choke point is anywhere your tail has no choice but to follow you or lose you completely. Think narrow alleyways, staircases, building entrances. If someone follows you through 3 different choke points, that's not coincidence anymore. That's surveillance. Decision points are even more clever. This is where you make an unexpected turn or change of direction. Most people walking down a street continue straight. So if you suddenly turn left into a side street, anyone who's genuinely just walking their own path will continue straight. But a tail? They have to follow. They have no choice. And the moment they make that same unexpected turn, especially if they do it quickly, you've got your first indicator. But here's where it gets really interesting. Intelligence operatives use something called the rule of 3. 1 instance is coincidence. 2 instances is suspicious. 3 instances is confirmation. So you don't just make one unexpected turn. You make several throughout your route, and you watch to see if the same person or the same people make those same turns behind you. Let me give you a real example. You're walking down a main street. You suddenly cross to the other side mid-block, not at a crosswalk. Normal people don't do this unless they have a specific reason. Anyone following you has to make a split-second decision, cross with you, and risk being spotted, or stay on their side and potentially lose visual contact. Either way, they're forced to react, and reactions reveal patterns. Then, 2 blocks later, you do it again. You cross back. Now anyone who crossed with you the first time has to decide, do they cross back too? If they do, that's your second indicator. One more confirmation, and you know for certain you're being followed. But professional surveillance teams know about the rule of 3, so they've adapted. They use multiple operatives who rotate positions. The person behind you in block 1 isn't the same person behind you in block 3. This is called box surveillance or progressive surveillance. They create a box around you with operatives on all sides, and they pass you between them like a relay race. So how do you detect this? You use what intelligence operatives call natural surveillance detection opportunities. These are everyday actions that give you a chance to observe the people around you without looking like you're checking for surveillance. Reflections. This is the oldest trick in the book, and it still works. Store windows, car mirrors, your phone screen when it's dark, even puddles on the ground. Operatives are constantly using reflections to see who's behind them without turning around. You stop to look at a shop window, but you're not really looking at the merchandise. You're watching the reflection of the street behind you. You're noting faces, clothing, movement patterns. Here's the professional touch. You do this multiple times throughout your route at different locations, and you're looking for the same faces appearing in multiple reflections. Because even with a rotating surveillance team, there are only so many operatives they can deploy. Eventually, you'll see repeats. More tactical than there's the cafe technique. You enter a coffee shop or restaurant with clear sight lines to the entrance. You sit with your back to a wall, facing the door. This isn't paranoia. This is standard tradecraft. Now you order something and you wait. You watch everyone who enters for the next 15 to 20 minutes. A normal person who happened to be walking behind you continues on their way. They have their own destination. But a surveillance operative? They have a problem. They can't just stand outside waiting for you. That's obvious. So they either have to enter the cafe themselves, which puts them in your direct line of sight, or they have to position themselves somewhere nearby where they can still monitor you. And both of those actions make them visible. Professional teams will adapt by having one operative maintain distant observation, while others reposition for when you leave. But this costs them time and coordination. And every adaptation they make is another chance for you to spot the pattern. Now let's talk about one of the most effective techniques, forced-turn surveillance detection. This is deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful. You approach a corner, and at the last possible second, you turn. You don't signal it. You don't slow down. You just turn sharply at the corner. Anyone who has just coincidentally walking in the same direction won't make that exact same sharp turn at that exact same moment. But a tail? They're watching you. They're focused on you. And when you turn, their instinct is to turn too, to maintain visual contact. That immediate reaction, the mirror of your movement, that's your confirmation. Here's what separates professionals from amateurs: timing. You don't check for surveillance constantly. That's exhausting and obvious. Instead, you build it into your natural routine. You use what operatives call normal life patterns. You stop to tie your shoe, but while you're down there, you glance behind you. You take a phone call and turn slightly as if finding better reception, using that moment to scan your surroundings. You drop something and pick it up, giving you a reason to look back at ground level where you can see feet and legs, the parts of the body people forget to disguise. Public transportation is another goldmine for surveillance detection. You board a bus or subway. At the last second, anyone following you has to make a rush decision: board the same transport and be obvious, or let you go and lose you. Then you get off at the next stop unexpectedly. A genuine commuter stays on. A tail has to get off too. Do this twice, and you've confirmed surveillance beyond any doubt. Elevators and stairs create what intelligence agencies call commitment points. You approach an elevator, press the button, but then take the stairs instead. Or you enter an elevator, wait for someone to join you, then exit just before the doors close and take a different elevator. These actions force a surveillance operative to make hard choices in real time, and those choices expose them. But here's the technique that professional operatives consider the gold standard: the broken pattern. This is where you establish a predictable routine, then deliberately break it. You walk 3 blocks going straight, then suddenly enter a building through the front entrance and exit through the back. You create an expectation, then violate it. Surveillance teams position themselves based on predicted behavior. When you break the prediction, they're caught out of position, scrambling to readjust. And that scramble, that's when they become visible. Every single one of these techniques works because of one fundamental principle: surveillance requires constant visual contact. Break that visual contact unexpectedly. Create situations where maintaining it requires obvious action, and you force the pattern to reveal itself. This is the science of counter-surveillance. This is how operatives stay alive in hostile territory. But knowing you're being followed is only half the equation. The real question is, what do you do once you've confirmed it? That's what we need to talk about next. So you've confirmed it. You've used the techniques. You've checked the reflections. You've made the unexpected turns. You've watched the patterns emerge. And now you know with certainty that you're being followed. Your heart rate increases. The adrenaline kicks in. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to run, to confront them, to do something dramatic. But here's what every intelligence operative learns in their first week of field training. The worst thing you can do when UV detected surveillance is to let them know UV detected it. Think about it logically. The moment a surveillance team realizes you're aware of them, everything changes. If they're professionals, they'll immediately pull back and switch tactics. They'll bring in fresh faces you haven't seen before. They'll use technical surveillance instead, tracking your phone, monitoring your communications, following you from a distance with vehicles or even drones. You've lost your advantage. But if they don't know you spotted them, if they think they're still invisible, then you have something incredibly valuable: information and control. This is where most people make fatal mistakes. They get scared and they react emotionally instead of strategically. A trained operative does the opposite. Once they've confirmed surveillance, they stay calm. They continue acting completely natural. They maintain the same pace, the same demeanor, the same route they were already on. Because now they're gathering intelligence on their surveillance. They're noting how many operatives there are, what their rotation patterns look like, what their communication methods are. Are they using radios? Are they using hand signals? How disciplined are they? This information becomes crucial for whatever comes next. And what comes next depends entirely on your situation and your objectives. If you're an intelligence operative on a mission, you have protocols. You have contingency plans. You have backup routes and safe houses and emergency contacts. But for everyone else, for journalists and activists and business travelers and anyone who might find themselves under unwanted surveillance, the strategy is different but equally important. You need to get somewhere safe, and you need to do it without leading your surveillance to anyone or anything you want to protect. This is called cleaning yourself in intelligence terminology. It means losing your tail in a way that's completely natural and undetectable. You don't run. You don't hide. You simply create a situation where maintaining surveillance becomes impossible without being obvious. The most effective method is using crowds and transportation hubs. You enter a busy shopping mall or train station, somewhere with multiple exits and heavy foot traffic. You move through the crowd naturally, and then you use one of those exits that aren't visible from the entrance. Your tail loses visual contact, and by the time they reposition, you're gone. Public transportation is particularly effective for this because it forces split-second decisions. You board a train or bus and wait until the doors are about to close. Then you step off at the last possible moment. Anyone following you either gets trapped on that transport or has to jump off in an obvious rush. Either way, you've separated yourself from the surveillance. Then you immediately board different transport going in a different direction. You've created what operatives call a clean break. From that point forward, you're operating under the assumption that you're no longer being followed, but you still maintain awareness just in case. But here is something crucial that doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes the right move isn't to lose your surveillance at all. Sometimes the smart play is to control it. If you know you're being followed and they don't know you know, you can lead them away from anything sensitive. You can feed them false information through your actions. You can waste their time and resources. Intelligence agencies do this all the time. They'll let an operative be followed deliberately because it keeps the opposition focused on the wrong person while the real operation happens elsewhere. It's called dangling, and it's one of the most sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques in existence. For ordinary people who find themselves under surveillance, the most important thing is documentation. You photograph or mentally note everything you can about your surveillance. Faces, clothing, vehicles, license plates if possible. You note the times and locations where you detected them. This information can be critical later, whether you're reporting it to law enforcement, to your company's security team, or to a journalist if you're a whistleblower or activist. Evidence of surveillance can prove harassment, stalking, corporate espionage, or government overreach. It transforms your situation from "I think someone is following me" to "I have documented proof of systematic surveillance." The psychological aspect of being under surveillance cannot be understated. It's invasive. It's violating. It makes you question everything and everyone around you. This is actually part of the strategy. Surveillance isn't just about gathering information. It's about intimidation. It's about making the target feel watched, vulnerable, paranoid. Intelligence agencies and authoritarian governments use it to suppress dissent. Corporations use it to intimidate whistleblowers. Abusive partners use it to maintain control. Knowing you're being watched, even if nothing else happens, changes your behavior. It makes you self-censor. It makes you afraid. And that fear is often the real objective. This is why learning counter-surveillance isn't just about physical security. It's about psychological resilience. It's about refusing to be intimidated. It's about taking back your agency in a situation designed to make you feel powerless. Every operative who works in hostile territory knows this. They know that surveillance is part of the job, and they refuse to let it control them. They use their training, they trust their skills, and they operate with confidence even when they know eyes are on them. That mental strength, the refusal to be paralyzed by fear, that's what separates successful operatives from unsuccessful ones. And here is what is important for you to understand. These skills aren't reserved for spies anymore. We live in an era of unprecedented surveillance. Your phone tracks your every movement. Cameras watch you on every street corner. Your data is being collected, analyzed, and sold by countless companies. Physical surveillance is just one layer of a much larger system. But it's also the layer you have the most power to detect and counter. You can't stop facial recognition cameras or cell tower triangulation without technical expertise. But you absolutely can spot someone following you if you know what to look for. And that awareness, that knowledge, that's real power. The techniques I've shared with you today are used by intelligence operatives around the world. They're proven. They're effective. They work in Moscow and Beijing and London and New York. They work in crowded cities and empty rural roads. They work because they are based on fundamental principles of human behavior and spatial awareness that don't change regardless of location or technology. Master these techniques, practice them until they become second nature, and you'll move through the world with a level of awareness that 99% of people never achieve. But awareness is only the beginning. The real skill is knowing what to do with that awareness. It's staying calm under pressure. It's making smart decisions in real time. It's trusting your observations and acting on them decisively. These are skills that extend far beyond counter-surveillance. They're life skills. They make you more confident, more observant, more capable in every situation you encounter. And in a world that's increasingly unpredictable, those qualities are invaluable. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you're out walking, practice these techniques. Not because you think you're being followed, but because practice is how skills become instincts. Use reflections to see behind you. Make unexpected turns and observe who follows. Stop in a cafe and watch the door. Build these behaviors into your normal routine until they're automatic. Because if you ever actually need these skills in a real situation, you won't have time to remember a video you watched. You need them embedded in your muscle memory, ready to deploy instantly. And if you found this information valuable, if you learned something that could genuinely help you or someone you care about, then do me a favor. Share this video, not for the algorithm, not for the views, but because this is information that could save someone's life. It can help a journalist operating in a dangerous country. It can help someone escaping an abusive situation. It can help a business traveler who finds themselves under corporate surveillance. Knowledge is only powerful when it's shared. Hit that subscribe button because we're going deep into the world of intelligence, tradecraft, security, and situational awareness. We're covering everything from digital privacy to physical security to the psychology of deception. This is the stuff they don't teach you in school but that everyone needs to know. And if you want to support this channel and get access to even more detailed content, extended interviews with former intelligence operatives, and step-by-step training modules, check out the link in the description. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever felt like you were being followed? What did you do? And what other intelligence techniques do you want me to break down next? The community here is incredible, and I read every single comment. Your questions and experiences help shape the content we create. Remember, Awareness is your first line of defense. Skills give you options, and options give you control. Stay safe out there, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.